Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Success in Black and White.
The podcast. We are back one more again. We are back one more again.
We are back again. I'm excited because we are not alone.
We are not alone. And we love it when we're not alone and we can bring in people who are doing extraordinary things and kind of get them to share their expertise and some of their experiences with us. So I'm very excited about this one because this person that's going to be joining us today, we kind of go like way, way back. Like we talking like 10, 15 years, way back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys already heard the bio. Like the stuff that he is doing is incredible. But JD, we are so happy to have you on our podcast. And I just think I want to reiterate what it is that you do because it is amazing. You oversee, correct me if I'm wrong, but you oversee the equity, diversity, inclusion training for over 70,000 people with Enterprise Holdings. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
That is mind-blowing. We have a hard time getting like 2 or 3 people to listen to what we say about diversity, equity, inclusion, but 70,000, that's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive into this interview. It's exciting. But you guys go way back, right?
Yeah.
There's probably some context to that, you know. I'm waiting for stories. Like I'm kind of excited.
Let's do this. Let's do this. See, she's trying to see what she's trying to do. She's trying to set me up. She's talking about I'm ready for some stories.
Some stories, right?
Yeah, she want the tea.
I want the tea.
We ain't doing the tea right now.
Oh.
All right.
We got a lot of stuff to do. So
let's do this, JD. Let's do this. So for all the people that are listening, we want you in your own voice, in your own way, to tell them who you are, about you, kind of how you got to the place that you are right now, and why you value so much in what you do.
Yeah. So first of all, my name JD James Davis, but JD for short. That's how D Love and I got connected. But yes, I'm born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida. Grew up in high school and all there, but decided once it was time to go to school and went to Florida State. And that's where Daryl and I met. And we actually stayed in the scholarship houses together, right? So we were there. And I mean, to get into scholarship houses was a blessing anyway. So obviously you got to keep your grades up, but it taught us, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, it taught you how to make sure you were able to get along with other people, work together. We had to cook, we had to do the grocery shopping, you had to take care of your own laundry, all that good stuff, which was pretty cool. But, you know, after school, I did a year in politics, actually, with the Florida Democratic Party. But I realized, man, quickly that politics was not for me. So I decided, you know, I had to make some changes. And I knew that I wanted to always move to LA. So I actually picked up and moved to Los Angeles in 2005. And basically, you know, moved out there and started working with Enterprise as a management trainee on the professional side. And I'm coming up on my 15-year anniversary, actually, with Enterprise. I actually just hit 15 in March, but coming around will be 16 years. But it's been great. I started out working in the branches, washing cars and taking care of customers, and worked my way up to assistant manager. And from there, I had an opportunity to go over to the National Alamo side. So for those who don't know, Enterprise Holdings is comprised of National Alamo and Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And that acquisition in 2007, 2008, I was able to go over to the LAX National Alamo side and work there for a year and 3 months, learn the business, learn the ins and outs about the customers and the employees, got promoted back to the Enterprise side as the group trainer to train all the new hires coming in Southern California, which was pretty cool. So I did that for 5 years, earned a promotion there, and then raised my hand to be the HR manager, the generalist manager, to learn a little bit more about HR outside of training. And then this position here where I am located currently is in St. Louis, Missouri. So I am at the corporate world headquarters for Enterprise, and I am currently the corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. And I know that's a mouthful, but overall, my job, as you already heard a little bit before, is, you know, to make sure that our company and our employees have an understanding of what it is when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, why it's important, how it ties into our business, and how we can continue to grow by making sure that that's a top focus on what we do every single day.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. So I know JD, right?
Yeah.
So, man, you want to talk about one of the, I guess I feel this way because of my experiences with him, but one of the most like blessed people that I know. If you think about the story that he just told and how that transition happened, you know, most time people, they have to know somebody and then they have to work real hard and then they have to actually play the game that he said wasn't for him, the political game. And you know, and kind of move and navigate through that. So, I mean, I think that's amazing that you took the opportunities that were given to you and made the most of them and were able to transition. Second part to that is I've never met anybody that he couldn't get along with. So I'm sure that helps. I mean, even in college when we were together, you know how there are different groups of people and, you know, some people kind of get in with that group. And I'm one of them. I'm guilty. I raised my hand. I'm one of them. You know, I had my certain little group. And this guy transitioned and kind of like was a part of every group. And no matter where he was or who was around, somebody in any group always knew who he was. And he was able to do that.
It seems like you really found your calling.
I know. I was just like, it all makes sense.
It all makes sense. Like, that is the perfect type of person, especially in kind of how we're seeing the divisions in America and just like the different type of groups. We need somebody like you. You should be president. We need somebody like you who can relate to so many different types of people groups. And so that is really cool. This really does seem like it's actually your calling. That is awesome.
So this is what I want to know, JD. I told you I'm the wild card. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording. This is what I want to know. As long as I've known you, like, where did all of this come from? Like, how was this all instilled in you? Because like I said, from day one from knowing you, it was like, he's a good person and everything that he means is like, it's meant well. Like, how was that instilled? Where did that come from?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I can't, beat around the bush. It's a motto that we have in our household right now with my family, which is, it's not about us. It's about what God wants to do through us. So I'm a huge man of faith. And I totally believe that God puts you in a position and puts you in certain spaces to have and make effect and have change there. So even at a young age, my mom, my dad, they didn't just keep us around a certain group of people just because they looked like us or where they were from or an age group. I kind of shared in some other interviews that I did gymnastics for 10 and a half years. And we all know that gymnastics, now you see Simone Biles, you see Gabby Douglas, you see some people who are Black and African-American and they're doing some great things. But when I was coming up, you only saw a few. We saw Dominique Dawes, right? Just a few people. So for me to even be in gymnastics, a lot of my friends were like, what? You the only Black kid on the chocolate chip in the milk. What's going on, man? So I learned how to engage with, and I learned how to talk with and converse with different people who were not from where I'm from. So it wasn't that it was unfamiliar to me when I began to grow, when I began to develop. And I knew that being a people person, that's for me at heart. No matter what it was, whether I'm in sales when I first started at Enterprise, whether I'm in human resources, people resources, now whether I'm in inclusion and diversity in the current spot, I know that at the end of the day, I would not be successful if I did not have a good grasp and a good gauge for the people. So at the end of the day, I have to make sure that I keep that forefront at the top of the mind for sure.
You know what? I think that is, for the listeners, I think that is a nugget that you want to grab right now and put in your pocket. That's something that we have an opportunity to talk about a lot. And one of the areas that, I've done a lot of research in, but in a different aspect of managing relationships. But I think what you just said is so important with taking advantage of opportunities to interact and engage with people that are not just like you, and then taking those experiences and then just kind of applying them to how you interact with other people. So for listeners, he dropped the nugget. Take that and put it in your pocket right now.
So if I can, I think one thing that I share even in some of our classes and some of the meetings that I have an opportunity to speak at, I always tell them before I leave, or at least I try to remember to tell them somewhere throughout the presentation, I think something that we all can do is we can intentionally engage with people who are not like us. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to be the first one to take the first step. You be the one to walk towards that person who normally, or maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable walking towards, whether they have a different ability, whether they may be from a different generation, a different background, different ethnicity, different gender, maybe whatever it is, you be that person to step outside of your quote unquote comfort zone, because that's when we're uncomfortable. That's when we start to really learn. That's when we start to grow. So when you think about tying that into, working out, right? It's when you start working out and you begin to get sore. That's when you know, oh man, I'm sore the next morning. That means something's working. So typically you don't just stop when you feel sore. You work out on top of the soreness to get more strength and more strength, right? So same thing. It's a muscle that we have to exercise when you start talking about engaging and making sure that you are intentional with that. Because the more you practice at it, you'll start to look in the mirror and say, oh, I like these results. I like that. I need to keep working here. This is another area that I'm going to continue to develop.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great analogy.
Yeah, that was good. I'm just hogging all this. I'm just like,
I know.
I got another one right on top of it.
Go for it.
All right, cool. So, you just talked about it, and I think those are some great ways with those type of initiatives. From your expertise, what would be a good way for someone who maybe doesn't know the right things to say or don't feel comfortable? How could they start that process of engaging? What would be your advice?
Yeah, a lot of times it's not about knowing exactly what to say. I think sometimes it's just about putting yourself out there and knowing that, hey, and maybe you can preface it by saying, hey, I may mess up when I'm talking. I may mess up in saying what I'm about to say, but please know that it's coming from a sincere place, a good spot in my heart, that I want to learn more about you. I want to learn more about your culture. I want to learn more about your family. Would you be willing to share with me as I'm willing to open up and share with you so that I can grow? And typically when people, when you ask someone to give them an opportunity to grow and share, they typically don't turn that down. So oftentimes you have an opportunity to really bring someone in and pull them in and really be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I think, this April, like a lot of times what we see is people, they don't take that approach because their objective is to only be heard. They have a point to prove. They have something that they want to get off their chest or that they want to share. And that's their motive going into the conversation is, I have this to say and you need to listen. And then the disconnect happens after they've done that. So I think that's a great word of advice that you gave. I know for me, I need to work on that, because I ain't going into no conversation being like, hey, I'm about to open up, so I need you to open up. I need to start putting that into practice. So.
I think it's important. And I like that. I mean, even on, social media is probably one of the most divisive places right now that you could potentially be. But I think that is a good thing to keep in mind, even on social media, is to kind of invite different perspectives to try to understand where other people might be coming from or what influenced the way that they're thinking. I don't think that we do that often on social media. And I think that does create a lot of the divisiveness that we see in America today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are people who I recently noticed on some of my social media platforms who may have a different lean when it comes to politics than I do. And I was like, oh, wow, he's totally over there. I'm totally over here. And something said, oh, you ought to delete him because he's not thinking like you. And I said, something else said, no, why would you delete him just because he has different thoughts and different backgrounds, different opinion? So I didn't delete him. But it's crazy because a week later I checked and I think he might have unfriended me or deleted me, no. which is pretty funny. Because I'm like, it's all good. I was learning. I mean, I'm learning more about you and why you feel the way you feel. And there's some other individuals that I found who may be on social media who think differently. But for me, I don't run away from that. I actually lean towards that. I lean into it because, I try to make sure that I'm able to hear all sides. Some people say both sides, but what about all sides? Because there are different sides from different people, different perspectives. I may not agree. I may not disagree. I may be neutral. But if I don't even create the space where people can feel that they can be themselves around me, then I feel that there's something that I can work on to hopefully foster that going forward.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's so good already. It's so good already.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I can go like with our list of questions, or we can just keep going down rabbit trails.
I mean, I feel like he's addressing a lot of
I
us.
know.
So,
so good.
Get ready, because after this one, I'm going to let you transition back.
Okay.
See, I told you I'm the wild card, man. I'm gone already. I'm gone.
That's all good.
So you get your mind right on where we transition. The listeners already know this. They know me, so they know how I roll. So while she's getting her thoughts ready about how we're going to transition, my question to you is, one of the things that, I like to do and we talk about a lot, and I know that you will do, is we like to keep it real. So we like the positive energy and a positive light. But for some people, they may need to hear this or may need to hear what you have to say about this. Like, what are some common barriers that you have witnessed? Because you work with over, I was going to say 700,000, however many thousand, 70,000, however many thousand. Like, I know there are some common barriers. I would like for you to, share what some of those common barriers are, but also to keep it positive and to keep people progressive. Like, what are some solutions that either you, your organization, or just businesses or organizations in general can do to move forward through some of those barriers?
Well, yeah, I think some of the barriers, one of them you mentioned, I think a little bit earlier, D-Love, when you spoke of really listening to listen to someone and listening to understand. I think that's a huge, huge point to make, because oftentimes I think we only listen to speak. We're waiting to hear what you say because I'm formulating a response in my mind and I'm just waiting on you to zip it so I can put it in there. Versus really taking time to sit, listen intentionally to hear what you or the other individual has to say, and then using that. And maybe I have to kind of teach myself, when someone speaks, maybe it's not necessary for me to respond right away. Maybe I don't need to respond right away. I need to sit and let it bake for a little bit. I need to sit and let it take root for a little bit so that I can hopefully understand. And if there's something that I'm not sure that I understood, I'm going to follow up with a question and maybe restate what I heard and ask for them to clarify if I've missed or misinterpreted what they're saying. Because oftentimes, a lot of the things that we run into, the barriers that we run into, has to do with communication, has to do with your genuine self, whether you are really listening or not. One of our founding values here at Enterprise is great things happen when we listen to our customers and each other. So if I want great things to happen, it's kind of like an if-then statement. If I do this, then this could happen, or this will happen. But if I'm not willing to do that, if I'm not willing to put in the work to actually sit and listen, then I have to understand that the results that I'm looking to get may not be the ones that I want in that season, if that makes sense. But those are some of the barriers that are there. But if you were to look at just overall, I think barrier-wise, it's almost like, well, if I believe this, it means that I'm against you, is what I'm hearing from a lot of people. Or if you believe that and I don't, that means we can't even talk. We can't even contribute to any conversation together. We have to just totally separate. And I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that, because you're basically saying if I'm not like you, exactly like you, then there's no benefit from us even engaging in this relationship. And I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, because you could be missing out on a totally different perspective just because you disagree with one thing. Now, again, some people feel heavy and they have heavy hearts about certain things, and I get it. But at the end of the day, I have to really understand and really put myself, hopefully, in someone else's shoes. And that's where the whole empathy comes in, because I think if we are more empathetic versus sympathetic, it might give us a better light to kind of navigate through some of those conversations and questions. No, I have some people who, yeah, James, I get it, but I'll never understand because I'm not Black like you, or I'm not a guy like you. Yeah, you're right. But there is a level of empathy that you can show, that you can give, that you can portray, that you can stand with me with, to let me know that, hey, I may not be able to ever walk in your shoes and experience it, but based off of your experience, I know you enough, I trust you enough, I believe you enough that I'm going to take what you say and I'm going to act and behave accordingly in a way that's going to help support you, help navigate whatever this conversation or situation is. I'm going to help us navigate it together versus, hey, you're on your own, right?
Oh my goodness!
I'm so good.
He set up. Did you catch this? I'm finna help y'all listeners out real quick. I know y'all listening. I'm hoping y'all hearing the same thing I'm hearing. he set up the steps to get to, I think, the most important part, which was trust.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the biggest issues when you're talking about the conversation, because no one kind of set the foundation for that trust to happen so that people can genuinely, engage with each other, which will, I think, bring in that empathy. And I was listening to what you were saying, and you kind of like set the stage, and then you hit it right in the mouth with that trust. If you don't have that trust, it's going to be difficult to have those conversations, to engage, or to get to know people better. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. Genuine listen.
Yeah.
Display empathy, have empathy, and then you can get to trust. I love that. That's so smart.
Yeah.
I have 2 wild card questions.
Oh,
and
see?
I know. I know, you guys. I know. Well, the first one, because this is your area and this is what you do, I think that you have already given so much. I mean, we could literally end the interview right now and people would have like, boom, their brains are blown already. But I want to know, because I tend to be very pragmatic. And so I'm curious, like in leading initiatives and in leading the organization, what are some very practical application things? Because my brain thinks in like data and information, like coming in and going out. What are some like programs that you do to address this within enterprise? What are initiatives that you have that really work? Like, what are the things that you're doing that really work? What are suggestions that you have for large organizations, whether they're public or nonprofit or whatever? What are things that work in this realm?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we've done in recent months with everything that's happened and transpired, you can't get away from what's going on in society. And I think there was a time in corporate America that I can remember when they say, hey, don't bring that to work. You can't talk about religion, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about race, right? And look at what we're talking about right now, right? In society today. And I try to remind people that no matter who and where you are, people are people. And they're going to have differences and they're going to have challenges even outside of work. So we have something where we talk about making sure that people can bring their best self to work, their whole self. I can't bring my whole self to work if I'm worried about whether or not my kids are going to eat this evening when I get off work, or if I'm worried about how my kids are going to get picked up from school because now my meeting ran late and I don't want to leave the boss thinking that I'm just leaving early who's going to pick up. So you have to find a way to make sure that people are able to trust you enough as a leader and as an organization to where they can share those personal moments, to where they can really trust that manager to say, okay, my manager has my best interest at heart. And that comes from investing time into each person that's on your team. So if talking to an organization or talking to leaders, make sure that there's a plan in place for relationship building, okay, whether it's through your mentoring programs, whether it's through data points that you all address or stop points that you address throughout the day or throughout the month, throughout the weeks. But there has to be a time where it is carved out intentionally for leaders to invest in their people. Some people say, oh man, I got to go spend time with this group. I got to go spend time with that group. But listen to the word choice, spend time versus invest time. When I'm investing time, I'm putting time intentionally here or resources here, and I'm expecting some sort of a return. Typically, that return is going to be either equal or more than what I put in. That's what ROI is. Whereas when I spend, I'm not necessarily looking for anything where I'm just spending time and it's just frivolous. I'm just going to spend. That's why I have to challenge myself to make sure that I don't say I'm going to go spend time with this group of people, or I'm going to go spend time with that group of people. I'm intentionally saying I get to invest time with this group of people. And then using the word to say I get to, that's giving me a reminder to say it's not given or guaranteed. It's a privilege because I get to invest time into my people. So relationship building is a huge, huge pillar in any community, in any company, that if you really want your people to bring 100% to the table every day, if you want them to give you 100% every day, if not more, they have to have a relationship with you as a manager to say, hey, I got to do it because I know that they trust me and I know I can't let them down, or I'm looking at the bigger picture here. So building relationships and making sure that you don't not only build them, but sustain and cultivate them. Because it's one thing to, oh, it was great when I knew hire got here. Oh my gosh, you gave them balloons and they got a nice little badge that's shiny and they got their badge to swipe in and woo. All right, so what are we going to do now to sustain that relationship? Okay, you can't just leave them now. It's now 3 months down the road and you haven't had any follow-up with them. So what can you do to continue to engage them? Evergreen, if you will. It's got to be an evergreen plan that you have in place. And then whatever plan that you have in place, you got to make sure you're consistent with it. So 4 steps to success that I've used in my career that's helped me and that I've shared with others is, number 1, anything that you're trying to grow or make positive movement or change with, you have to, number 1, create a plan. What does that plan look like? If you need to write it down, if you need to bounce it off of different people for ideas, create a plan. Number 2, you need to be able to implement the plan, all right? Because implementation is key. You can have the greatest plan, but if it's rolled out the wrong way, it can fall flat on its face and it'll never grow. It'll never do what you want it to do. Number 3, you have to follow up with the plan or be consistent with those steps, right? So create a plan, implement a plan, follow up on the plan, and that's where accountability comes in. Who am I going to hold accountable as a leader? Who am I going to hold accountable on the team to do what they need to do? Who's responsible for this? Okay. And last but not least, the 4th step to that success process is I need to make sure that I'm consistent with everything that I've done on those first 3. I create a plan. All right. I'm implementing the plan. I'm following up and holding people accountable. And number 4 is consistency with steps 1, 2, and 3. I've used this early on in my career when my mentor gave it to me. I've used it later in my career. I've used it outside of work, right? So it's something that you can really use to kind of help keep you on track. So I know a lot of companies are talking right now about the social unrest and the injustices that are going on. Yes, okay, we listen. Now we have to create a plan. We need to know how to implement that plan, how to roll it out. And then our members and our employees are looking to see how consistent we are down the line with that plan. All right. And then, holding people accountable. And then are we able to repeat to make sure we stay top of our focus? So, yeah, it's something that continues to grow. But, overall, I think organizations can really grow from that and have plans in place that's going to really get you the desired results that you're looking for.
Yes. In higher ed, we call that implementation fidelity.
Ooh, I like that.
That whole cycle that you talked about. I just never had the sub-steps. So I gave you the name and you gave me the sub-steps, and look at this.
I like it. Implementation fidelity. Very nice. Yes.
Well, my other one is like real wild, so I'll let you ask.
Wait a minute. No.
It's wild.
Get it out the way.
I know,
get it out the way, because what I have is gonna kind of bring it back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna take a different track just a little bit.
Sure.
And this is not in the questions that we gave you, but I am curious because this plays such an instrumental role in your life. Like these 2 things colliding, I'm very curious about. So your DEI life, your diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then your faith and your belief in God and having that guide your life. I'm curious and you don't have to answer this question, but I'm just curious, what role do you think that EDI should play in like the church, like big C church, like the church?
In the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bible says, go ye therefore, right? Teaching all nations. So if it was only one nation to address, I don't think it would have said all. So that, I think, identifies that there are more than one out there, more than one group of people. So if I'm going out and I'm going to teach all, the Bible also tells us that we have to be fishers of men, right? Fishers of men, fishers of women. And that means of men, not of man, right? So men is multiple. It's the plural of man. So I have to know what bait to use to get the people. I have to be smart. I have to be wise. I have to be one who is open. I have to be one who's listening. I have to be one who, if someone needs to correct me, I have to be willing to receive that correction, right? That counsel, that godly counsel if I need to. So when you talk about winning souls, and you're absolutely right, it's interesting here at my job, I have a few individuals who we call SNL. right? Salt and light. Okay. So
Okay.
we have SNL lunches, right? We have SNL lunches, right? And because we are all believers, yet we're in corporate America, and we do understand that there's sometimes a pull and a push to make sure that you are still strong in your faith, still able to do what you need to do, still able to have your beliefs. And yes, it can be challenging, but you have to be willing to understand that not everyone will see it the way you see it. Right? Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman. I mean, he wasn't supposed to be talking to her, right? They all knew that, but he engaged in that conversation, right? She's like, "Why are you talking to me? You know you're not supposed to be talking to me." But he did what? He intentionally engaged with someone who was not like him, but he had to give her a drink of living water, not the water that she was dipping for him that she thought he wanted. I'll make sure you never thirst again, is what he said. So for him to do that, I think that's him showing us, right? Yeah, I can't, somebody here is homeless and they're dirty, they smell, he's walking towards those people. He's walking towards the people that everyone else wants to throw a stone at. So I think if I'm a Christian and that's how I'm supposed to live Christ-like, that manner, I have to not just talk the talk. I have to be able to walk it and do the same, because there are differences that are out there that I have to say, well, who am I to judge you when I know that I'm not the judge, right? I have to be able to still extend grace, pray for those individuals, whatever I need to do. But yeah, you have, even at work, sometimes you have to navigate and balance. Hey, let my yay be yay and my nay be nay, depending on what it is. And I just ask to continue to pray and ask God for discernment and wisdom in those situations, so that I know that what I'm doing is the right thing. And sometimes maybe I don't. Maybe I have to ask someone else who can help pray with me, pray for me, and to make sure that we're all on the same page there. So yeah, you're right, April. It is sometimes tough in the environments that you're in to still be who you are, to live what you live. But trust me, if someone opens that door, for example, in my training classes, I don't just walk in there just Bible thumping, hitting people over the head, talking about Matthew 5:16, John 3:16, 1 John 4, verse 4, greater is he that's living in me. I don't go in there just smacking them upside the head. But within my presentation, if not by the middle or by the end, there's another believer or a sister or brother who will come up, hey, yeah, I know you're a believer, huh? Or they'll sense it, or they'll have some sort of an inclination. It's kind of like, light recognizes light. You know what I mean? So they'll be able to kind of tell just by the conversation, the walk, the communication, the way that I choose my words. I'm not saying, hey, can I get a amen? Hey, I'm not doing that. But by the time we're done, if they don't know exactly what it is, they know that something's different, right? Something's different. And we are a peculiar people. So I want to make sure that something makes them want to come back and ask for more, or try to dig in a little bit more. So yeah, I have to balance it. You're right, April. But at the end of the day, my relationship with Jesus Christ and what I do for him is what ultimately gets the win every time.
Love it. I know.
Oh man,
that was out of left field too.
That was out of left field, but you know what? I'm glad you did that, because the way that he just presented that, like, somebody needed to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Probably a lot of people.
I know somebody needed to hear that. And even though you said that it was out of left field, I think it was meant for this conversation for JD right now. So I'm glad you said that, because did not register to me at all to even go there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna transition just a little bit, and I think you kind of helped navigate into the direction that I'm gonna go. And I know we had a phone conversation, and I asked you this question, but I want to ask it again now so that you can kind of elaborate on it a little bit for our listeners. With all of the work that you do, the work with diversity, equity, inclusion, and then training all the people, and then, living your life. Like, do you ever get burned out? Like, do you ever get tired? Do you ever get discouraged? And then, how do you deal with that, or how do you address those emotions and feelings when, those things happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, absolutely, you get tired, you get frustrated, you get exhausted. I am yes, the diversity, equity, and inclusion manager here at Enterprise. However, I'm still a Black man before I'm any of that, right? So I still have to, when I walk out of the office, I still have to live as I would any other time. So whether it's driving and making sure that I'm doing what I need to do so I'm not pulled over, making sure that when I'm in the store that I'm behaving. I mean, you do a lot of things and you have to navigate through it. So sometimes teaching it and having to remind people, you feel like, man, I'm so tired of teaching the same thing. Why haven't you gotten it? I've talked to you before. Why haven't you gotten it? But then I have to remind myself, God might be looking at me like, well, why haven't you gotten it, mister? I've messed up the same time in a row. How many times have you messed up? And I've been extended grace on top of grace on top of grace. So I kind of have to approach it the same way the scripture says it's new mercies every morning, right? I have to get some new inclusion, diversity, and equity mercies every morning, right? And really understand that what the why is behind it. Okay, you have to know your why. I think Simon Sinek talks about start with why. His book is really nice if you haven't read it, but that I can translate not just into what he's speaking of, but also with the why behind, you know, what we do as Christians and how we live and why we speak the way we speak, why we communicate the way we communicate. Why? Because ultimately we want to share the good news with those individuals to make sure that they have an opportunity and a choice. We all have a choice to either say yay or nay to Jesus Christ being their savior, and we see each other in heaven one day. But for me to get through that, yeah, I have to pull on, you know, my faith. I have to get, you know, girded up. My wife has to encourage me in times, right? And my friends and my family have to encourage me. And my mom has to encourage me. I lost my dad back in April. And I have to continue to, okay, well, what's going to make Pops proud? I know he's looking down on me. He's right here with me, right? So you use and you find those things, those people, those memories that can help push you as well. But yeah, it does get tiring and frustrating sometimes, but I have to choose whether or not I'm going to react to that tired and frustration state of mind, or am I going to respond to it? And I hope that I choose to respond more times than I choose to react.
God, I just had a conviction. Goodness. hey, man, I asked that question. I ain't expect to get that conviction. But I'm serious though, that mercy, like when I do wake up in the morning, like I'm thankful and I know that that's a new mercy for me, you know, that new day. And I receive it so easily. I'm like, thank you for the mercy. Thank you for the mercy. But when it's time to give it, he's still working on me in that area.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm like, you get no mercy. I done talked to you 5 times. I know you just not getting it because you just don't want to get it. So get out my face.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, we just have to, I think a lot of times when we start behaving and responding a certain way, we have to always turn the mirror back on ourselves. Like introspectively, internally, I got to look at myself and say, okay, let me start with me. Let me start with me first and see, and let me check myself first. And then if that's not what it is, then maybe I need to check my surroundings. Who am I with? Who am I connected with? Am I connected with people who may not be speaking life into my life or speaking life into my situation? Am I listening to the wrong stuff? Am I watching the wrong things? All that stuff plays a part. So I think you just have to continue to work on you and continue to work to get yourself better. And I think over time, you'll start to hopefully grow in grace, grow in patience, grow in knowing what the work is. I think my pastor said one time, he said, burnout? What do you mean burnout? I mean, you burn out, you just forgot your why, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're burning out, you just forgot the reason why you're doing it. Or the reason why you're doing it has been pushed to the back burner and it's not on the front anymore. Because if you always know why you're doing it and you know it's in line with what God has placed you here to do, yeah, you may feel tired, but it's not going to burn your life out.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that was good where in that entire segment where you're just talking about one of the things that jumped out, you said, you know, you got to turn the mirror back on yourself. Mm-hmm. And I know for a lot of people, I have those similar conversations to a lot of students that I work with and engage with when they are, you know, feeling certain ways or whatever. And I'm like, you feeling that way because of that person? Or are you feeling that way because of some things that are internally going on with you, you know?
Yeah.
And when you turn that mirror back on, you know, like if somebody scares you, you know, what do? You flinch. And the first thing you do is you close your eyes, you know? So when you turn the mirror back on yourself and it's something that, you don't like, you kind of either close your eyes or you turn the mirror back away.
Right.
So I think that was very well put and is a very important thing that I definitely try to encourage. And April will tell you, like my reflecting moments when I get up is in the morning in the mirror. Like I stand there before I even do anything. And I just kind of hang out right there. Sometimes she be looking at me.
What are you doing?
What is he doing this early in the morning in this mirror?
Yeah, but that's my check-in though. That's my thank you for the mercy for allowing me to see another day. That's my check-in. It's like, man, like lead me this day so that I can do the work. And that's kind of where I do it. I reflect and I kind of go about how, I see myself moving through that day. So I think that was great insight.
Yeah.
I think this has been really good.
Yeah.
I honestly don't want to take away from anything that has been said because all of it has been so good and really enlightening. So I think we should close on one last question.
Okay.
Of what is your recommendation? If you had like one recommendation for our nation, for your employees, like for Americans, for humans overall, moving forward, like what is your recommendation so that we all can have an appreciation for God's creation in all of its diversity?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to me speaking about just putting yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable, to partner with, engage with, unite and join with people who may not see it the way you see it. I think typically we move quickly towards groups, circles, spheres of people or relationships that make sure that we're comfortable. Okay, there's something in comfort. There's something where we can let our hair hang down. We can let our hair hang low when we are around people that we trust, people that we know who are like us. Your hair hanging low. But yeah, I think as a world, I think, you can't speak about love enough, right? Now, there's love in action for sure. But I think overall, I think there could be a deficit of the love that we should extend to every person, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what they believe in, what they eat, what they don't, what they believe and how they share. So I think, all of us can start with love. Number one, loving ourselves. I believe that's that mirror turning back first. If I'm going to start with love, I got to make sure I love myself. I got to forgive myself for some of the things that I did. I've got to forgive myself for some of the things that I said to someone else or that hurt someone. A lot of times I think it's self-inflicted, and then hurt people end up hurting people. So we try to get it off of us by hurting other people, not knowing how to cope and deal with it. So, I mean, a lot of that could be through that mental health area. It could be through physical health, but I would say love yourself, get that straight, find out what we need to do internally, but then work to intentionally do, those nice and loving things for other people without really expecting anything in return, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes I know it's kind of a transaction. Oh, I'll do this if you do that. Mm-hmm. I'll do this if you, no, I'm going to do it because I want to do it and not expect anything in return, because that's the true, the true truth for giving it and doing it in such a way that that it's for the greater good. But yeah, I think we need more love for sure. But we got to start with ourselves and hopefully let that transition our way.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh man, this has been great.
I know, it's been so good.
We appreciate you.
I'm gonna have to listen to this like 7 times so I can reflect on like all of the different things that you have said.
All good.
Yeah, it's been good. Well, do you have anything else?
I think that's it.
I gotta ask that question.
I know my wild cards are coming out today.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. Nice. This has been great.
All right, well, that's it for me. So until the next time.
Bye.
Peace.